Hi.
Hi FMX.
Yeah.
We're super happy to be here. We're super happy that you are here. We are Lina and Florentin from the Words Just Shapes, and we are from Vienna, and we have a 3D design studio.
Yeah. Together we help innovative brands, cultural institutions, and creative agencies explore new visual realities, and mostly by our love for crafting hypernatural materialities and working in the kind of space in between the physical and digital.
Yeah, and here is a quick show reel of our work so far. If it's working. Oh.
No, don't do this. No? Right.
Yeah, and also thank you, Maxon, for inviting us. After the presentation, they also have a little surprise for you.
Yeah.
But now, let's dive right into our topic for today, which is no words, it's just shapes. From we are sculpting to creating procedural materials in 3D, or to be precise, in Cinema 4D and Redshift. Now, here's a quick summary of our talk. We will start with a quick origin story and a recap of us working as a duo and where we come from. And in the second part, we will talk about our favorite topic, which is digital nature and our daily tools. And finally, in the third, we will get to the tasty technical stuff, where
We are going to make this today from sketch to the finished render together.
Yeah, but first, a quick recap. We have a pretty, thank you, a pretty squiggly line career path. It's like most of creatives, they have like a not so linear way to go. Now, we want to show you what we did before we had the studio.
Yeah, so that's me. And this is me at 14 with my first punk band. And I always loved making music, so before falling into the whole 3D rabbit hole, I was actually working as a musician, composer, and sound designer for many years. I did a lot of live shows and experimental productions, also with audiovisual productions with different visual artists, which I enjoyed very much. But I also noticed that I was always the happiest when I was in the studio, like my cat at the time. And being able to experiment and tweak things for hours instead of going on stage, haha. and repeating more or less the same thing over and over again. So I switched the whole solo musician thing out for making music and sound design together with my oldest friend, Johannes Wernicke, who also made the awesome soundtrack of the showreel. And now we work mostly for theater and radio productions still. Last almost 10 years now, we've worked for Opernhaus Wuppertal, Schauspielhaus Wien, for the Steirische Herbst and Konzerttheater Bern, and pretty much all major radio stations in Germany and Switzerland. And I love working in audiovisual productions and also in teams and with people of different expertise, because it's super enriching and I just love the whole energy of it. From stage and costume designers to directors, actors, and everyone involved in such a process, which is also similar in 3D when you work in a pipeline. And also I love doing fun sound experiments with my oldest friend, which is super fun. And I don't know why, but they seem to be bathroom related a lot of times. I think it's something with the acoustics or something. I don't know. When you sing in the shower, it always sounds great. Yeah, and lastly, whilst working in theater, I also studied creative writing at the University of Applied Arts in Vienna, and started working in advertising as a conceptor and copywriter for brands such as Mercedes-Benz or the then known ING DIBA. And yeah, but it gave me a good insight into the day-to-day creative business, but there's no interesting visual documentary of this, except for this.
Yeah, that's me. I was either totally immersed in some creative project, or I was climbing up the walls in my childhood home, and I was always one of the kids who always was drawing. But before I studied graphic design, I did my bachelor's in cultural and social anthropology, and I really enjoyed the scientific approach to everyday life in different cultural aspects. And I love the research process, which I still do. And I love to learn about why people do what they do. And this approach is also very important in our work, because it helps us to make good concepts and to really get deep into what a brand really is, or what the brand culture is. Yeah, there's also not much to see of this time, because I was always reading at the library. And then I started graphic design because, like I said, I was always drawing, and I got really bored of just reading, and I wanted to do something with my hands. And so I did my diploma in graphic design at Grafische Vienna. And yeah, I worked as a graphic designer and art director since then. And like many graphic designers, like I said, I was drawing a lot, and I really, really missed that as a designer, because we sit in front of the computer like most of the time. So I started to do illustration, and I really enjoyed it. And after some time, I got more and more into more abstract works, like more collage style. And this kind of style, we still use it in our work today. So it kind of got our visual concept from there. And then again, something was missing. So I really, really like to work with my hands. So I started to do set design a lot, and photography. Yeah, and I did it for smaller brands in Vienna. And here I built some wax sculptures as a display for the jewelry of Elisabeth Habeck. We still work with her, but now we do like the 3D works for her jewelry. Yeah, I really like the experimenting with the three-dimensional space, and also with light and shadows. And what I also loved to do was like working on the big teams, because everyone brought their unique strengths to the set, and it was always very funny to do it.
Yeah, which brings us now to our first project that we did together. It's also the secret origin story of our studio's name. As you can see, it was called No Worries, Just Sad. It was the first project we've worked on together. We did it from 2017 to 2020. And it was a series of like revolving around abstract and minimalistic urban photography. So we were just roaming around cities and searching for patterns and compositions in architecture, often very, very close. And we found out that working together is pretty fun. So we started an Instagram, posted daily, took a lot of trips, as many as having at the time, very small child allowed. And yeah, it was super fun. But then something happened that put an end to all the traveling and going outside and roaming around. And yeah.
2020. Yeah, theaters were closed, uni was closed, kindergarten was closed. But besides COVID, we also caught something else during the lockdown, which was...
Yeah, we got heavily into 3D and animation. So suddenly our days that previously looked more like this, so like studying copywriting, composing illustration, sound design, performances, parenting, became more like this. So it was just basically 3D tutorials and wiping butts. Yeah, and we quickly realized that not only did we love working with 3D as a medium, we were also able to translate many of our acquired squiggly line career path skills into this field of work.
Yeah, and as you all know, or maybe some of you know, learning 3D can be very tough. But we found that there is a very inspiring community, and there are super helpful people, there are many resources and tutorials available, and we found many friends so far. So it's been a good experience. Yeah, so we want to give a shout out to inspiring people in our bubble.
You can also take a picture.
If you want. But there are, of course, so many people missing.
Everyone done? Okay.
Yeah, then 2022 we founded the studio Nowhere is Just Shapes. So these are our main tools. We use Cinema 4D and Redshift. Sometimes we use Adobe Medium and Procreate, and we use a lot of paper, pens. Yeah, we are, as I said, very research-driven, and we love to sketch out everything first. And also we still like to roam about the city and museums and nature to find inspiration. And we take note of everything we find, like growing patterns or surfaces and texture nuances. And then we try to extend the ideas we got from our inspiration into our own form language. Yeah, and we also love to work from a good concept.
Yeah, which, especially for a duo, it's super helpful if at least one person of the duo has a plan. Because if you have two people who don't know, then you're just gone.
Yeah, it's just a mess.
Yeah.
We also like to sketch like moving patterns or light patterns for animations. This one was for the 36 Days series in 2023.
Yeah, I think
yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and after some time, we noticed that we really missed working with our hands again. So we implemented VR sculpting into our workflow. And I think we use it for about 50% of our modeling, depending on the project. And it's a lot of fun because, yeah, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. You can be very bulky or very intricate.
You can make cool videos. This.
Yeah, but we still mostly work with Cinema 4D.
So this was from the Panopticon series, which we will show you in a bit.
Yeah, and we use Redshift as a render engine. And I think about 90% of our textures are completely procedural. So we are here inside Cinema 4D and Redshift. Like building procedural materials, among other things, means to only use noises instead of bitmap textures for things like reflection roughness, bump maps, or any other pattern that requires like a black and white input map. And because the contrary to using bitmap textures, a procedural texture has the same benefits as a vector graphic has in comparison to a rastered image. It has infinitive resolution, and it can cover any surface and doesn't require UV mapping. And here you can see a typical, not too complicated node tree of a procedural material without using any math nodes. Yeah, and as you might have noticed by now, digital nature is one of our main subjects of interest. We are super curious about like creating organic growth and movement patterns within digital media, and we like to explore new visual territory, challenging our perception of nature or what nature can be. Yeah, and we also like crafting highly detailed surfaces and materials. It's kind of addictive when you add layer to layer to layer to layer, and you carve out like more details and like tactile nuances. So this is an example. It's a series of digitally cultivated minerals. We called it Panopticon. And it's heavily inspired by the mineral exhibition at Vienna in the Viennese Museum of Natural History. If you're ever in Vienna, go there. You can spend hours looking at crystals and stones, if you're into that. Yeah, and we tried to capture the growth patterns and the varying surfaces of real minerals, but at the same time we wanted to expand the characteristics to something new. And because we loved the subject so much, we started creating objects, like everything in between plant and wildlife in our playtime. And we labeled them just shapes from 001 to 999.
Yeah, we'll do a big celebration when we finally reach number 999. You're all invited. Drop us a message.
Yeah, and every piece is modeled in VR. And then we procedurally shade them in Cinema 4D and Redshift. Yeah, it's very fun, but it also serves us as like a form of artistic practice, and it enables us to dive deeper into the aspects of natural forms, and also we develop our creative methodology. And that brings us to the third part of our presentation, the nerdy stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we finally can dive deep into the nerdy stuff now and take you through the creation of one of the objects of the Just Shapes series. Yeah, let's make this one from scratch. We always start with sketching out the shape, or more like ideas and colors and details, and also like patterns or texture ideas. Now let's gear up. We hop into Adobe Medium for the VR sculpting. Yeah, it's a voxel-based sculpting tool, which is nice because you can adapt the mesh, and you can adapt like the density and the quality while you work, and it makes it possible to work with fine detail. And in comparison to sitting in front of a screen, it's really nice to be able to immerse yourself in the sculpting process. It's a bit like working with clay, but the clay is nice to you and lets you hit Control-Z. Another benefit is the soundscape. It's like
super ASMR.
Yeah.
So you can just, you can't see anything else besides that.
Enjoy the process. Yeah, we currently use a MetaQuest 2, but with the Quest 3, you won't be connected to the tethering cable, so that would be very nice. Yeah, so you have something like a belt tool at hand with a range of different tools, and you can spray the clay, move it, swirl, inflate, deflate, and you can cut the mesh. And what is also nice, you can place like reference images in the scene, which we didn't do now, but we often do. Yeah, as you can see, we go a little wild sometimes. In this case, we work from a basic sphere and added a lot of arms with the clay tool. We love to add up layers and work over them again and again. And we deform part of the object to achieve a more organic look. We use the inflate, deflate, or move tool for that. And then we fine-tune it with some small details to add more structure. Here we use the deflate tool to drill some holes. It makes nicer edges than, for example, the cut tool, I think. Yeah, all this detail will play out nicely later on with the light when we do the procedural shading in Redshift. There's also a smooth tool where you can smooth out the surface to your liking at the end or in between. And as you can see, you can move everything around with your hands, which is also very nice. Yeah, there are also different other helpful modes for modeling in Adobe Medium. It's very intuitive. And if you have a VR headset, we highly recommend. It's a free program, so you can just try out the modeling. Yeah, and after that, you can simply export your model as an object or FBX file.
Yeah, which brings us to the part where we jump into Cinema 4D. Maybe I can just...
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, after exporting the base shape, I will just sit down for this. After exporting the base shape, it's time to jump into Cinema 4D for a quick 15-minute Node Madness action. So where we will take you now through the process of building the procedural material in Redshift. Bear with us. We're going to use a few nodes, but we're trying to stay as light as possible. And feel free to ask any questions afterwards if something wasn't clear. Also, this presentation will be available as video on demand, so you can follow it step by step at home if you want to try it out yourself. Yeah. So we're now in Cinema, starting with a basic scene. We have the model imported from Adobe Medium. And normally we use the remesh tool a lot. For this one we didn't, because we kind of liked the topology the way it was. Yeah, so we use the backdrop node, which is really nice because you have procedural backdrop. And the camera, pretty standard with an override in the background setting. So we have this flat background. But we also need to check the primary ray visible off in the Redshift settings for the backdrop so we don't see it, but we use it for the light bouncing around. Yeah, so let's create a standard material. We are still using the old node setup out of habit, but it works the same with the new one. Fire up the render view. And yeah, right now it's looking good, finished. Send it to render. Yeah, let's change the reflection to 1.4 to get rid of the plasticky reflection. And we also want some light scattering through the object, so we can put the subsurface scattering weight up to 1 and then put the scale up. But this depends heavily on the scale of your scene. And now we're going to use a curvature node, which is a super handy one for those of you who don't know it. The curvature node actually gives you a black and white map based on the curvature of your object, either concave or convex. And you can use it as a mask to drive any parameter you want, which is also really interesting if you animate. Yeah, we use this for color now. So we will change some settings with the radius. In this case, it's set to 1. Put the samples up a bit and remap it a little bit. Then we use another super fun node, which is the ramp node, and connect it to the subsurface color. Now you can also see the way the curvature node works, because everywhere where it's black, in this case, it's less curved, and where it's white, it's more curved. And but we're going to remap the color values in this ramp. So we're going to set the black to a nice orange, and the white to a rosé kind of.
Peach fuzz.
Yeah, it's a peach fuzz. Already we see that it plays out very nicely with the light passing through, but we need to break up the uniform reflections. So we will add some roughness. And for that we will create a few nodes. First of all, a Redshift noise, which is a little bit less versatile than the Maxon noise in terms of what you can edit, but it looks really great oftentimes. So we like to mix the two together a lot. So we're changing this up a bit and also use a Maxon noise set to wavy turbulence and just put the scale a little bit down. These are just subtle changes. It will become, they will become greater once we add in some displacement. Like right now we're just preparing for the light to be able to bounce away differently from the object. So we will feed this into a color layer node, which works the same as in Photoshop. You can just have different modes of mixing together noises, bitmaps, textures, whatever. And we will feed this into the reflection roughness. Like this is subtle, but now we're already getting a little bit of a different view on the object. But we want more detail. So we will add a bump. We will create a subtle bump. Let's make another color layer node. We already know it. It's beautiful. And we create a Maxon noise. Set it to stupel, because it's kind of a nice wavy shape. Maybe change the seed and the size a little bit. And up the contrast just a tiny bit. Octaves. never do anything with Stupel, but I fall for it every time. And yeah, maybe low clip the whole thing a little bit, and we will feed this into the color layer base. But still, this is looking quite uniform, even for a noise, because like if you have a texture map, you often get like harder edges and more fine detail. So what you can do here is create another noise, and instead of putting it into the color layer, which we are just did here now, mistakenly, we are going to put it into the noise offset. So we're offsetting one noise with another noise, which gives us a super broken up noise. And it's a very simple technique that you can use to just make it a little bit more organic. And yeah, so we can use this now as the layer 1, and we will use another star of the show curvature node as the second input for the color layer node, which we will set to radius of 3. Leave the remap as it is, and yeah, use this as the mask for the black color in the color layer node, which is subtle, but it does a little bit. So this is the noise. We can put this into a bump map and connect this to the geometry bump input of the material. Now this is looking fine, but let's add a little bit more detail now. So to break it up even more and to add in some different materiality and colors, we are going to create a second standard material now to blend them and blend those two together. So we'll just hit Shift C, which brings up the search function. And yeah, we set the IOR a little bit differently than the other one. This time to 1.33. It's just a go-to IOR, I guess, for anyone who has ever worked with ICE, you know it. But I don't know, we like to use it. And then we're going to use a Fresnel node here for coloring the whole thing, which is also a super, super interesting node. It's also super interesting if you animate the mesh or you change the camera angle, because it's dependent on this. But you can use it to drive color. So if you uncheck use index of refraction, you have a control slide to say, I want this color here and this color here. And it works a little bit like a ramp. So the lower you go with the number, with the fall off, the harsher the contrast between the two gets. And if you have it higher, it's more of a blend together. And like this, we can get now, as you saw in the final image, we have these red stripes to almost look like it's something more alive inside, or some blood vessels. So yeah, so we're already getting this now with this material. And we're also adding the same color to the sheen, which gives it a nice fuzz, especially around the edges. Normally you would put it a little bit lighter, but in this case they were already quite light, and it worked well. Also subtle detail, but it makes it a little bit more velvety, which we kind of liked as a texture for the second material. And now let's blend the two together, keep everything nice and tidy. Of course, we're always having every node tree perfectly nice and tidy like this. And yeah, so we're using the first material as the base material and the second one as the layer 1 material. And now we need something to blend those two together. And you guessed it, we're going to use another curvature node because we love them, old chap. And we're going to set this one to convex, actually, and make it quite different, safe in between. And bear with us, we're almost done. Like, we're just going to go over the displacement then, which is the crazy part. Yeah, the juicy part. And yeah, as you can see, the curvature node can act very differently as well. So this is the black and white mapped values now. We actually overcranked all the contrast and bias on this one to make it a little bit more contrasty again. So really blow it out. And now we can use this to drive the mix between the material 1 and the material 2. You can also use the new material layer node, but just out of habit, we use the material blender. Also with subsurface scattering, we had some problems sometimes with the material layer node. I don't know why, but so we tend to keep it to a material blender node if we use a lot of subsurface scattering. Yeah, and now we have the two blend together, so you can see there's this really nice blue coming out from the one material and also these red stripes. But we still get the materiality of the first material that we did. We can also use the bump input that we made for the reflection roughness of the other material. We just inverted it for the bump. And yeah, now we're already getting a more interesting look, but let's add some displacement. For that, we need a RS object node tag added to the object, because if we don't have that, we can't drive any displacement. In this case, we have set it to 4, the minimum edge length. If you set it lower, you will get more detail. We will go over that as well. And yeah, for the displacement, we will use a few displacement blenders and displacements, and we're going to blend them together again. I'm not going to go over every detail, but I'll try to keep up. And yeah, so we will use noises again. So first, Voronoi noise, which a lot of you might know. It's always nice if you want some bumpy holes or something that looks a little bit rougher, almost rock-like. And we're going to offset the first noise again, like we did with the other one. So for that, we're just going to make a normal Maxon noise, keep it as is, and pump this into the offset of the first noise, which is subtle, but it gives us some variation. And we're going to make another noise. So I don't know if anyone has kept count of how many noises we use now, but it wasn't that many. You did? Yeah, nice, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, all of them. Nice. Yeah, so we're going to use a color composite node here. Sorry, instead of the color layer node, because we're just using 2 noises to blend together. It's basically works the same. And yeah, let's put all of this into the displacement input of the first displacement that we do. But as we don't want the displacement to appear everywhere, because we want to have some areas where there's no displacement at all, so where the tentacle monster thingy looks more alive than hardened, or whatever this creature object is. We're going to use displacement blender node, so we can use another noise to say where we actually want to have this displacement and where we don't want to have it. Yeah, then we're going to put it in the input, not in the base, because the base, again, works as a base, so it would be everywhere. It's easier if you want to have some control. It's easier to have it like this. So we're going to use a curvature node now, again, to drive the areas where we want this first displacement to happen. Old, trustworthy curvature node. And yeah, we're going to make a second displacement blender, where we can actually, after tidying everything up, we can push the first displacement blender as the layer 0 of the second displacement blender. Yeah, this would be fine, but since one set of displacement isn't enough for high render time addicts like us, let's go for a second displacement. Create a color layer node and a Maxon noise. We're going to set it to Voronoi 2 and just downsize the scale a little bit to 0.2. And we're going to use another Redshift noise set to fractal. You're going to see it in a bit. The fractal noise is a super detailed noise that gives you an organic look very quickly, which is nice. Like already you can see that it looks more like a turbulence, but if you up the frequency scale and the distortion and you play around with these values a little bit, you can get super nice, crazy results that almost look like a kind of a surface imperfection texture map, just as is. You could also pump it through a ramp to clamp those values even more together, so you get like harsher contrast. In this case, we didn't. Yeah, we are going to set this to multiply, and you can see the Voronoi really playing nicely together with this fractal noise to create a very organic structure. I'm going to put this into displacement, and again, not in the base, in the second one. And now we're going to create our last noise. It's the last one, so bear with us. We're going to leave it as is, because it's perfect, and just tweak the scale a little bit and the contrast, so we get a really harsh break on where we want the contrast and where we don't want it. Black, there's no displacement. White, there's displacement happening. And we're driving both displacement with that, setting the mode to additive, so they both work together. And then we just have to turn on the RS object tag again, and from now on wait a little bit longer. Yeah, but you can already see that we get a lot of detail. I'm going to go a little bit closer in as well. And yeah, you can see this has now transformed the object completely. And now if we set, for example, the minimum edge length instead of 4 to 2, you will see render time will increase, but at the same time you will get higher detail. So if you're rendering out close-ups, or if just still images, set it to 0, 0.2. Like you can see it now, it's taking a little while. But this is the edge length set to 0, and the amount of detail coming in is insane in comparison to 4. But if you use it for animation, use a render farm, or you have two 4090s at your home computer or in your studio, we tend to keep it at 2 or something if you do animation. Yeah, as you can see, sometimes when you switch cameras, just have to refresh your render view, because with the subsurface scattering, sometimes it can act up a little bit, but it works perfectly fine after starting again. Yeah, then as a last thing, we did a scatter setup with an RS matrix to scatter some little bubbles on it to make it feel a little bit more organic. It's just displaced spheres. We used the shape itself as a field, and also a spherical field to say we don't want any bubbles here. And yeah, that's how we get from sketch to this finished one. We also added the close-up so you can see the bubbles a little bit better. You could, of course, add like small grass or stones or whatever. The more detail, the better, most of the times. Yeah.
Yeah, and we really like this process of starting in VR or any other sculpting software like ZBrush, and then we go into the whole lovely technical node madness, since it gives us a lot of freedom, like to have different workflows.
And as we said, you can also check out this tutorial part of the presentation at home once it's been uploaded. If you want to follow along, of course, you might be in for a surprise, because depending on how the object looks, it could look completely different, because we use so many curvature nodes and everything. So yeah, if you try it out, please send it to us. We're super interested.
If you have questions, please ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as we mentioned earlier, I think you might have seen it a lot of times already, but Maxon has a little surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please scan the code to register for a chance of winning a Maxon 1 license. And for any questions regarding Maxon, you can speak to the lovely, lovely, lovely Maxon team present here after the talk. Yes, it's give you some time. Yeah, we're going to have. Oh, wait, can leave it up for the.
Ah, yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Anyone who needs to scan it?
I like to know, please, what's your attitude to developing your skill set and bringing new practices into your work? So, for example, the VR sculpting. Is it something that you block out time in your daily work calendar, or does it start as a bit of fun that you do at the weekend and then it finds its way into your work practice?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Like sometimes when we have a project where we think it could fit, we like take some time to do it for that and learn it. And sometimes it's just like for fun. If we really want to try something.
Yeah, yeah. And have you ever found that you've invested significant time looking at something and then thought, actually, that doesn't have a place in our work?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Plenty of times.
Yeah. I mean, it's always the same rabbit hole, right? You find something and then you notice something else not working with that setup, and then you follow down this rabbit hole, and then you go down this, and some things you also discover by accident. Especially the VR sculpting, I think, was a necessity for us, because we also noticed that we're both not super trained hard surface modeling 3D people. So modeling was fun, but we kind of, especially for this whole organic stuff, it's just so much faster if you go into VR and pull the clay out.
Yeah.
Especially now with a good remesher in Cinema 4D, you can also use it topology-wise. It's not just a mess. Also, the voxel-based sculpting is just super nice, which would also work with volume builders and volume meshers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much just answered my question. I haven't used Adobe Medium before, but I do a lot of metaphor,
Mhm.
and I'm wondering if you think that would be a feasible first step in generating enough topology that precision would be acceptable for that.
I mean, of course, like with this shape, the whole surface changes a little bit with remeshing. Even if you set it to adaptive 100%, I mean, it's going to change. But I think you can get precise enough, definitely.
Which direction would affect your render times best?
What you mean?
Well, if you're relying on a very highly developed texturing technique, which has certain benefits when it comes to rendering versus something that's got so many polygons that
Yeah.
practically, making toast while so I'm thinking, wow, if I can trim, 30% of my render time out of this by using this technique, that would be great. The other question that I have is, if you use the have you tried that, and if so, are the results interesting or?
That's a super interesting question. I think we have to go back like tomorrow when we're in Vienna. We're going to try out make a depth pass with a curvature node. That's no, we haven't tried it, but that's a super interesting question actually. Yeah. Yeah, sure. And with about the render time, yeah, you can definitely cut a lot of render time by that. I think, yeah. With the-
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What is your approach to lighting?
Oh yeah.
It looks so cool. You see every single detail, everything comes through. And I think like the thing that I struggle the most is because every single detail I make, sometimes you can't see it because the lighting is just not there. So what do you guys do?
We actually forgot to go over the lighting.
Yeah,
of this
good
one.
point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we can
go back. Maybe we
can
see
go back.
it.
Yeah, actually, you can see we have in this scene. It's I think one gobo,
Yeah. Yeah.
one backlight, and just a dome light with an HDRI image, but set to very very low, just to fill out the very dark parts. But it's actually almost not visible if you turn off the other lights. The gobo, I'm not sure where it's from. It might be from the great pack by I Go by Zach, if you know him on Instagram.
Yeah, that could be.
Yeah, but I'm not that sure right now. So most of the times we're actually just doing very simple 3-point light setups. For close-ups, we sometimes use another,
Yeah.
like just to
To highlight.
Yeah.
Like
But it's definitely not our. We're not like super firm on our lighting as well. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you had a question.
So thanks for the presentation. It was super, super interesting.
Thanks.
So I've been a bit curious because you have like caustics all over the stuff. Do you also need this with the material or like use it with the light?
Here on this one.
Maybe
Or-
it's the
Not
gobo.
on this one, like the ones you showed before from the 0 to 199.
Ah, yeah.
That look like caustic.
It's
It's
just a gobo.
It's just a gobo.
It's just a gobo, actually. It's just lighting. So it's just a caustics map
Yeah.
that like and just used as a map for the light, for the area light. In this
So
case.
I'm not into cinema.
Hmm?
I don't know what the gobo is.
Ah, yeah. Gobo light is like it comes from.
Comes from photography and film.
Yeah.
And it's like in real life, it's like a filter in front of the light, or or basically if
or a
you
card. Yeah.
a card, or basically if you put like a twig in front of a light, it
Hmm?
breaks up the light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Goes before. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Oh yeah. Mm. Yeah. I mean, it depends. I think with we try to UV map as good as possible, which isn't too bad for super organic shapes. Like if you have a little bit of, we have wiggle room in comparison to like a hard surface, perfect box or something where the UV mapping just needs to be spot on. So most of the time we do we rarely use triplanar projection mapping, like for this reason, because if we want to animate, then you're like, have to rebuild this whole tree. So we tend to do UV mapping, sometimes auto UV mapping also. We haven't tried any third-party UV plugin, but yeah, we surely will at some point. Have to, yeah. Yeah.
When will the video on demand be available?
I think
27.
27th on. And I'm not sure, maybe the Maxon team can answer this question. Will it also be on the Maxon YouTube channel or not? Yeah?
The video on demand will be available from the 7th of April to 31st of May on FMX website. That you can use that to register and you can access that on Maxon YouTube channel from the 1st or the 2nd of June.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess like years, 2 years.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit like Photoshop. You just have to try and try. Just add, and there are a lot of great tutorials.
Yeah, definitely. Like especially for the node stuff, and there's people out there who are doing crazy stuff, like a lot also with math nodes, which we tend to not use as much. But yeah, I think we started using Redshift 2021 after grilling our MacBooks on physical render
Yeah.
for a year before that. Yeah, so. Mm? Mm. Yeah, we use Procreate a little bit for texturing, actually. We haven't tried out Substance or something like that.
Not yet, but maybe.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Any more questions or? Oh, yeah.
I think when we started the studio, we started with, I think with Panopticon.
With Panopticon, yeah.
Yeah, and then it gave us time to like develop our style more, and also like the visual work I did before, we could take a lot from that. And then when people saw the Panopticon, they could like imagine what our style was more, and then you get booked for what people see. So we kind of, we try to do a lot of our own work and show what we want to do. Like, yeah.
And we are also lucky enough that we get booked for similar things that we do in our private work, like especially for in bigger pipelines, also for texturing, just texturing part, for example.
Yeah.
And
but I think it's always good, like, to show what you really want to do and not show just the client work that feeds your mouth. Just make the effort to show the things you really want to do. Otherwise, you always get booked for like the stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah.
But of course, we still do like the breadwinning stuff.
Yeah, of course.
We all have to eat.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have two questions. First, a lot of the shapes, especially with the bubble lighting, reminded me of like underwater surfaces and like coral grids. Is this also something where you draw your inspiration?
Yes.
You know, yeah, we live in. Sorry, you continue.
Yeah. The second question would be, do you have a favorite Maxon noise and all by heart? Like really knowledgeable when you approach them. So like you set the name of the noise and describe it very well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, for the first question, I think we live in Central Europe, so so having a natural draw towards anything sea-related is healthy, I think. No, yeah, it's definitely super interesting topic.
Also, like it's like stones. We like stones and minerals.
Yeah.
So like, corals are not so far away.
Like these kind of symbiotically living creatures and ecosystems are just super interesting to us.
Fungi,
Yeah, fungi.
mushrooms.
Yeah. And for the second one, yeah, I
Favorite
actually
noise?
like I have some pillows, like with
No.
noises on them. It's tough. I think the one we use most is wavy turbulence,
Yeah.
even though it's not animatable, not loopable, but it just gives.
It's versatile.
It's very versatile. Yeah. So, thank you for noticing our love for noises. Yeah. Next time we will wear a respective T-shirt.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we love the noise. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Hi. We do both.
Yeah.
It depends on how happy we are
Yeah.
with the results. But mostly we don't do much Photoshop. It's
No.
like
Retouching a little bit. Yeah.
retouching a little bit. Like maybe
Sometimes
there
passes.
are some like tiny details we don't like, we will take them out or something like that.
And also, what we do is we often render out like just a background as a puzzle mat or something, so we can change this up later on
Yeah.
with transmissive. If you have translucent stuff, then
Yeah. Or for compositing.
yeah, for compositing definitely, but like not 16 passes most of the time. Yeah.
I wonder what exchange format do you use between Adobe and Cinema? What file format?
You can actually export it as an OBJ or FBX
Yeah.
from Adobe Medium. So that's super handy. It's super quick. You can also like say what level of detail you want, and they reduce your polygons already out of Adobe Medium, which is cool. But the remeasure works better. Yeah.
That was an interesting question for me, because I tried to get a model into Procreate last night and was able to
So you wanted to export from Procreate or into Procreate?
Sorry.
You,
Into Procreate.
like just in OBG or FBX?
Try the OBJ file.
Okay. Actually, yeah. Do you know which file is? But it should be supported, right? In OBJ. Yeah.
I think
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I think we had a similar problem, but we watched some tutorials and then it finally worked.
Yeah, but what
Yeah,
was
I
it?
remember. I don't remember what the solution was, but there is a solution out there.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You should do that. Yeah. Thank you.
The videos that you showed of you sculpting in VR, but it was from a third point of view.
Mm.
Were those developed yourself, or is that a feature that is easy to do with Adobe Medium?
What
did
was
it ourselves.
We did it ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can set a background color, and you can set a camera inside of Adobe Medium that you can put somewhere. And if you put it at the same spot where you have your camera, you can just use blue, and then just edit it out to blue, like with a blue screen.
Yeah.
Interesting to see that, because I saw a talk the other day where it was like a totally VR view inside Sculpting world, and there's a little avatar holding the tools.
Yeah.
We can do that as well.
Yeah. And this is easy actually. You can just record.
That's easy, yeah.
If you tether to the computer, you can just the video is directly transferred, which is cool. But
Yeah, but for the other version, you need to film yourself with your iPhone as
Or-
well, like, or anything else.
yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
And have a great day.
Yeah.